The year 2025 began with an economic bang, the bad kind. Markets tumbled, headlines screamed, and uncertainty rippled through every sector. It was a moment that caught nearly everyone off guard, from Wall Street to Main Street. In February, the Trump administration, newly re-elected and emboldened by a fresh mandate, unleashed sweeping tariffs, dubbed the Liberation Day tariffs. The announcement was made with fanfare, promising to put America first and shake up the global order. These weren't targeted taxes, they were a 10% tariff slapped on nearly all imports, from electronics to clothing. Some goods, like trucks, furniture, and pharmaceuticals, faced tariffs as high as 100%. Suddenly, the cost of doing business and living changed overnight. The goal was clear: protect American industries, revive manufacturing, and pay down the national debt. Supporters hoped it would spark a new era of domestic growth, with factories humming and jobs returning home. But the world didn't just accept it, they hit back. Allies and rivals alike imposed their own tariffs, escalating tensions and igniting a global trade war that no one could easily control. The unpredictability of constant tariff threats sent shockwaves through global supply chains. Shipments stalled, costs soared, and companies scrambled to find new suppliers or reroute goods. Businesses couldn't plan ahead. Uncertainty was higher than during the COVID-19 pandemic. Retailers faced empty shelves, and consumers braced for price hikes on everyday essentials. From small stores to car manufacturers, everyone struggled to adapt. Some companies paused production, while others laid off workers or closed their doors for good. The tariffs were meant to set America free, but for many it felt like being trapped in an expensive, shrinking room. Families watched their budgets tighten, and businesses faced impossible choices. The global economy braced for impact. Economists warned of a recession, and investors watched nervously as markets swung wildly from hope to fear. The stage was set for a new kind of economic conflict, one where every nation had to choose a side, and the rules of the game were being rewritten in real time. Retaliation came fast, and it was more severe than anyone had anticipated. Countries like China, Canada, and Brazil didn't just slap tariffs on US goods. They took a far more dramatic step. They began dumping their US Treasury bonds, sending shockwaves through global financial markets and signaling a new phase in the economic standoff. For decades, America relied on foreign buyers to fund its debt cheaply, trusting that its bonds were the safest investment in the world. Suddenly, that trust evaporated, and the very foundation of US financial dominance was called into question. Canada and Brazil, angered by tariffs targeting their industries, trimmed their holdings in a coordinated response. Their actions sent a clear message: economic aggression would not go unanswered. China, already wary of US intentions, accelerated its sell-off. Officials cited US political volatility and growing distrust, making it clear that America's most powerful creditor was no longer willing to bankroll its rival. This wasn't just protest, it was financial warfare on a scale rarely seen, with nations using their economic leverage as a weapon. The US suddenly lost its ability to borrow cheaply. Interest rates spiked, and the cost of financing America's debt soared, threatening the foundation of its economic power and global influence. The Great Treasury sell-off marked a turning point. The world wasn't just refusing to buy American products, it was refusing to bankroll America itself, forcing the US to confront a new and uncomfortable reality. The consequences would ripple through every corner of the economy, from Wall Street to Main Street. Businesses faced higher borrowing costs, families saw their savings threatened, and economic uncertainty grew. The era of easy money for the US was over. The government could no longer rely on foreign cash to keep the wheels turning, and the effects were immediate and painful. The global financial order was shifting, and the world was watching to see what would come next. When foreign countries begin to sell off large amounts of US debt, it sends shockwaves through the global financial system. These countries, once major buyers of American Treasury bonds, now look elsewhere, forcing the US government to react quickly. To keep attracting new buyers for its debt, the government must offer higher interest rates, making US bonds more appealing, but also more expensive to maintain. This shift ripples through the economy. Higher treasury yields mean that borrowing costs rise for everyone, whether you're taking out a mortgage, financing a car, or paying for college. Every loan tied to these rates becomes more expensive. As interest rates climb, so does the cost of living. Everyday essentials, groceries, gas, utilities, become harder to afford, squeezing household budgets across the country. The government, already running a massive deficit, now faces ballooning interest payments. More taxpayer money is funneled just to cover the cost of debt, leaving less for everything else. With so much spent on interest, less is left for repairing roads, building schools, or funding social programs. Investments in the nation's future are put on hold. Businesses too feel the pinch. Higher borrowing costs make it harder to expand, invest, or hire new workers, slowing job growth and innovation. The auto industry is hit especially hard. Dealers pay more to stock vehicles, manufacturers face higher financing costs, and ultimately, those expenses are passed on to consumers. Car prices soar, and auto loans become tougher to get and more expensive to repay, putting new cars out of reach for many families. The combination of rising rates and trade tensions, like tariffs, delivers a 1-2 punch to the economy, slowing growth and shaking confidence. Growth stalls, businesses close, and uncertainty reigns in both financial markets and on Main Street. The pain isn't just felt on Wall Street. Small towns and family businesses across America struggle to survive, feeling the impact of every economic tremor. America's debt addiction now comes with a new, painful price, one that touches every household, every business, and the nation's future. As trust in U.S. Treasuries faded, central banks rushed to gold. Gold prices soared to record highs as countries diversified away from the dollar. The 2022 freezing of Russia's reserves had already spooked nations. Now, U.S. policy volatility made treasuries look risky. Gold, immune to sanctions, became the new safe haven. China led the charge, boosting gold reserves and reducing treasury holdings to shield itself from U.S. pressure. The move was both financial and geopolitical, an open challenge to U.S. dominance. Other countries followed, diversifying into gold, euros, and yuan. The dollar's status as the world's anchor was under threat. The global financial system was becoming multipolar. The U.S. could no longer count on being the world's only safe bet. The rules of global finance were being rewritten. The American auto industry took a direct hit. Tariffs raised the cost of every part: steel, electronics, batteries, adding thousands to the price of each car. Manufacturers faced a choice: absorb the costs or pass them to consumers. Most did both, but profit margins shrank and sales slowed. Electric vehicles, once on the brink of affordability, were set back by tariffs on battery components. Then came higher interest rates, making car loans pricier. A $40,000 car now cost thousands more over the life of a loan. Consumers balked, inventories swelled, and jobs were cut. The tariffs meant to protect U.S. manufacturing ended up strangling it. The auto sector became a cautionary tale of unintended consequences. Tariffs are taxes, and consumers pay the price. In August 2025 alone, Americans shelled out $30 billion in new tariff taxes. Prices jumped for furniture, clothing, and even groceries. Retaliatory tariffs crushed U.S. agricultural exports, worsening the trade deficit. Inflation rose, real wages fell, and household budgets were squeezed. Low and middle-income families felt the pain most. Promised manufacturing jobs didn't materialize. Instead, jobs in trade-exposed sectors vanished. The tariffs triggered a painful economic reshuffling. For many, the American dream slipped further out of reach. The economic fallout sparked a political firestorm. Public opinion turned sharply against the tariffs as costs mounted. Polls showed a majority of Americans disapproved, especially in trade-reliant states. Congress was bitterly divided. Democrats called the tariffs economic poison, while the administration doubled down. Legal challenges mounted, with a Supreme Court case looming that could overturn the policy. Even local communities were split, with uncertainty paralyzing business decisions. The tariffs fractured not just Washington, but industries, towns, and families. The nation was left divided and anxious about its future. The political cost of economic disruption was just beginning to unfold. The 2025 tariffs and their aftermath signaled a seismic shift in America's global role. The U.S. lost its status as the world's financial anchor. Trust in the dollar and treasuries was shaken. Other nations built new economic alliances, accelerating de-dollarization. For Americans, the result was higher prices, rising interest rates, and job losses in key sectors. The promise of a manufacturing renaissance was overshadowed by inflation and disruption. The tariffs became a massive tax on consumers, lowering living standards. America's attempt to wall itself off prompted the world to move on. The country now faces a crossroads: adapt to a multipolar world, or risk further decline. The true cost of going it alone is only beginning to emerge. Ordinary Americans will be paying the price for years to come.